pension fund managers.
Engage them or
to come back on.
Because
you've taken us off. You want to bring us back on.
Right now, I think the most prudent thing to do would be to extend the deadline. That's what I'm thinking. Then, yeah, that would be the most prudent thing to do at this moment.
Right. Until when?
We say at this junction.
Until when? Because what's the guarantee that if you extend it, the individual bondholders, everyone else would accept?
But that is why the stakeholder engagement should have been undertaken.
Exactly.
So you
would have all been on the same page.
Because you know what? These individuals just don't make the decision. Yeah. Sometimes you have relationship managers of their accounts in their respective banks who are chasing them. I remember somebody from my bank said, "Oh, Ro, because they, Ro, wouldn't you buy? We have this new bond. Wouldn't you buy it? We have this new deposit. Wouldn't you buy it?" So that is where
they came convincing customers to jump onto some of these
So I think the engagement should have been through the banks, and then you meet. They also in turn tend to meet the larger bulk of their customers.
It's the same complaints that Momo vendors had when e-levy was introduced. Yeah. The same thing. They were not engaged because they would have done the groundwork for government. But here we are today. Yeah. And it was effective 11th of January. Have you sent any Momo? Is the 1% applicable now?
I think that because is it MTN the first one they announced that, yes.
When the budget was read, it indicated that it will be effective 1st of January. Then I don't know what happened. They changed it to 11th of January. I haven't sent any Momo, mini Momo, so don't ask me for Momo. So I don't know if it's
dealing cash.
They have.
You're dealing cash and bonds. Individual bondholders.
So let's know
of all individual bondholders.
Let's know. Keep the conversation going. If the 1% e-levy has taken effect on all your transactions, Momo transactions, let's know. Papa, are you confirming that for me?
No, I had a message from the I think one of the vendors.
Okay.
One of the service providers. Right. I don't know whether it was Vodafone or MTN.
All right. So let's know. I haven't sent Momo in a very long while.
Yeah. Why you know the same? But you know they buy food. You know they buy.
And they use the small coins I get. The Momo there I don't get because I don't go pay afford.
People have money. People have money.
But I can't. That said, I know, for example, my big man, I mean, he stopped making bulk transactions because he could send. He had a number of drivers. He's a big transporter, yeah. So he had to give, or he always gave, monies to his guys because they'll go on road trips, go and do deliveries.
Oh, it has started.
It has started. Yeah. Okay, so he stopped. He was doing it bulk. So he takes the money. He takes the money and goes to his transport yard, and then he distributes or ask somebody else to do that.
All right, but I read it.
Well, on Saturday I sent 100 Ghana cedis to someone. Okay. In fact, I think that was the second 100 Ghana cedis I had sent that day. So I was charged.
100 cedis.
Yes, because you know the threshold is still.
So still 100. So you were not charging.
No, I was charged because this was the second 100 Ghana cedis I was sending that day.
Okay.
So I was charged 0.75 Ghana cedis. That was the fee, and then the tax was 1 Ghana cedi. So yeah.
So it's taking effect.
They've started charging. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right. Just so you know.
Okay. So I think myself and Cookie Tizzle, we don't sell more. Is that what you said?
I no get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Charlie, you try not to, but there are certain days when you can't.
I don't
get. You still have to send it anyway. So if you do, then you pay that 1%.
I said in the last 3 days, I haven't sent anything. Anyway, all right. Okay, so we've got. Oh, don't do that.
They have cash. Where you can't. Well, like, I have $1 million. Give 200,000.
Amen. Amen.
Well, we have Courage
Boti. Yes.
Like
he's an economist and research lead at GCB Capital to lead the conversation for us this morning concerning this whole extension of the deadline. Hi, good morning, sir. You're welcome to TV3 New Day.
Good morning, Bella. It's a new day. Happy week ahead.
Hey.
It's actually Cookie that was talking to you.
That was Cookie speaking.
Mr. Buti. Bella. Bella Beyonce.
Good morning, Roland. And I think Cookie, I mean.
Listen, we are canceling all your bonds.
Mr. Boti, Bella, straight away.
Carry on.
Where do we stand this morning, in your opinion? Exactly where are we with this matter?
I think where we are is fairly well known. rejection, resistance from almost all quarters. I have cited something over the weekend, albeit informal, and I've not received confirmation from anywhere yet. But I understand the economic management team, the Bank of Ghana, and some other stalwarts met some bank MDs over the weekend to discuss the modalities and what their issues are. I think there are fresh concerns. I understand there is a research or analysis done by ICA Ghana that pointed to maybe new risks to the banking sector from this whole debt exchange. And I think the consideration now is that they have to look at all those things and how it would impact the bond program and by extension whether to vary terms or what a decision may be. But it looks like we've had one too many extension to the deadline. And so given that government has given a hard stop date of 31st December, really, it looks like the intention is to look at those suggestions now and see how we could address the concerns of the banking sector in general, and then maybe now aim for the hard stop deadline, really. Nothing is official. It's something I've seen in circulation, really, so I can't authenticate whether this is true or not. But the reality is that different investor groups have raised different concerns about the whole debt exchange program, and most of these concerns are very legitimate that need to be looked at. I think that our approach as investors from the word go was inappropriate in that we are going as individual groups, identifiable groups, taking demands based on what we think our circumstances are. But if we had gone as a collective, domestic bondholders, and then pressed through a common demand, having understood everybody's needs and everybody's concern, and pressed through a common demand for maybe more improved terms of the debt exchange, as we would have wanted, because we are represented by one group and it means if government cannot make a deal with that one group, there is no deal really. I think there would have been the inclination to vary the terms to a level that may be more acceptable than it is today. But clearly what it seems as we speak is that potentially the success rate of this debt exchange might be problematic. The main concern now is with the individual bondholders. They hold about 13% of the total debt stock as we speak, and then their exclusion, even if you say that impact is not too significant, we are aiming for 80% success. And already the pension sector, as we know, is exempted or almost exempted, because I understand the conversations are ongoing for the fine details of their exemption, really. And they are doing something close to 20% already of the total debt stock. And so if we add individual bondholders, if they are exempted already from the word go, we are not achieving that 80% target. And plus, a number of individuals and institutions that, look at what the demands of senior holdings groups are. They are calling on all fund managers and investors of fund managers to tell their fund managers to resist or not sign up to the exchange, really. So the impact could be way more than even the noise we are hearing, really. And we are not in a good place with this. The only hope, I believe, is that government needs to do debt restructuring. IMF hasn't said do domestic debt only, or do domestic debt to this magnitude and foreign debt to this magnitude. The choice is for government, and so there is some leverage to want to do a certain combination based on what each investor group will accept. And so for me, I think we should push for what we can get on the local market. Those who subscribe. If we even get 50% success rate, we could go with that and see what we can get with the external investors. The good thing about theirs is that the likes of BlackRock, the likes of Templeton, the likes of CT, and all of that, yes, they may have huge investments in Ghana, but compared to their total portfolio, it is actually a minute fraction of their portfolio, really. And so they doing even 50% haircuts and things like that, while it is significant, may not impact their financial standing so much. And they might be more inclined to having proper negotiation with government, agree some terms, and then we can push through some good sides of debt restructuring on the external front so that overall we can achieve the targets being set. My challenge again is that I don't understand why years of road mismanagement and debt accumulation, which people have talked about over time and have been ignored, is trying to be corrected in just 5 years, 5 short years, 2023 to 2028, because we are working with a KPI of 5% debt to GDP ratio by 2028 and an external debt service to total revenue of about 18% by 2028. The ratios as they stand now, debt to GDP is above 100%, 100% of GDP, and external debt is way more than the 18% we are targeting. But we are trying to correct the ills of several years in just 5 short years. It is the reason we are rolling out these punitive terms to investors. And it looks like the consensus at this point is about the numbers before us and what we have to achieve, and not the concerns of the individuals that will be affected by some of these decisions. And that is why I feel at this point, government should be a bit more listening, get these investor groups around the table, understand them in totality, and let's see what variations we can do to the terms of the exchange, at least to achieve some 50-60% success. Then we could push the rest to the external investors, really. So that's how I see the whole arrangement as we stand.
Okay.
Limited progress, really.
Okay. Mr. Botti, you've touched on a lot of the questions that we had for you this morning. But before you go, let me just ask. So if government is unable to meet stakeholders, and in this instance, I'm talking the GAB, if they fail to meet and address concerns, and if this deadline is not extended by close of business today, what could be the repercussion?
Well, so they hold the right to go ahead with the transaction or not. And like I said, we presented the option that we want to do domestic debt restructuring, and rightly so, because domestic debt is actually the main cause of the problem. Even if external debt is more now, the debt service cost from the domestic side is way, way higher. And so if you must achieve debt sustainability, I mean, you couldn't be doing it without the domestic debt, but it was our choice. And so when we presented option for the IMF, your debt is unsustainable, how will you bring it back to sustainable levels? We chose to do domestic debt exchange first and then go to the external market. Based on our proposal, IMF is saying that for me to approve your program at the board level, show me significant progress of the option you have chosen. And so we need to, and that is where the hurry is. We need to tell the IMF at this point that this is how far we've been able to go. They are not looking for 100% debt exchange. They are looking for significant progress. What that means, I do not know exactly. And so if we can't successfully push through some meaningful domestic debt restructuring, it means that there is a delay to the board approval that we are expecting, which is actually needed like yesterday, because we need that to get the economy on a sound footing going forward, to win back some confidence and to halt the slide we're seeing. Already, 2 weeks into the year, the CD is almost 9%, has recorded almost 9% depreciation. You do not want to sustain that trend. And the levels of reserve we have now is way lower than what we had at the start of 2022. But we saw the level of depreciation really. And so the consequences could even be dire, than we saw in 2022 if we cannot have a resolution to this quickly. And that is why government need to sit with investors. The whole approach from the beginning, it was focused on maybe more or less some glorified voluntary exchange, really. It looks like more or less you are just giving investors some instruction. And there was even suggestion at some point that you either take it or you on your own. With all respect, if you owe me, you don't tell me that. You sit down with me and say, this is my problem, and we find solutions. And so I guess the approach from the word go is the reason we are having these kind of challenges. And we need to, this is our choice of restoring debt restructuring. We need to make progress with it to get the IMF program going. Otherwise, when the program is not started and the CD slide as we've seen it could continue. And then, of course, inflation is tied to it.
We appreciate your time this morning, Courage Botti. He is an economist and research lead at JCB Capital. Thank you for your time this morning. Well, self-explanatory enough, if you ask me. It makes sense, the points that he had this morning. Anyway, big issues coming up in the next 60 seconds, if I can put it that way. This is still TV3 New Day.
Well, so let's get interactive. And as you get interactive, it also means that you have to add the hashtag TV3Newday as you go look for us across social media. So go look for TV3 Ghana. And I have Edwige Tamaklo. How are you? Legal practitioner. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning, sir.
And then also I have my good friend from SNIT, Mr. Gashon. How are you?
I'm good, Roland.
And Charles Akwe Gashon is the PR manager for SNIT. Thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Today we'll ask you some politically exposed questions. But I know that because you work for a quasi government institution, you'll be quiet.
I'm not a politically exposed person,
yeah,
so I can't.
So you will give non-politically exposed answers. But that's
great.
great. But I think that what we'll do this morning is to get more insights because as an institution, they are managing pension contributions or funds. So it also means that those premiums will have a certain direction from the board of SNIT and management, and he's reflecting all those views today. But Edwige, good morning to you.
Good morning, Roland. Good morning to our cherished viewers. Except that the country is mourning.
Well, who has died?
Our livelihoods, regrettably.
Right. Well, and Mr. Gashon, there's an important aspect of the conversation we want to have, and it's about you as the authorized fund manager as far as Tier 1 is concerned for public sector workers. You should have a certain sense of direction for that. We know that you had been undertaking some extensive media consultations last week, telling us about who is earning the highest. It's in excess of 160,000, I believe, to the highest pension earner, so to speak. What's the thinking of SNIT around the conversations that are ongoing about people's individual pensions, etc.?
All right. Thank you very much, Roland, for having us on the show. I will start by saying that SNIT, as a public institution and manager of the Tier 1 pension scheme, pays pension to every member based on factors that have already been set in the Act that provides for the establishment of the trust. And I'm talking about the National Pensions Act, Act 766. Depending on the salary that you insured with us and the number of years you have contributed or the number of months you have contributed and the age at which you retire, we will be able to determine your pension. So these basic factors should tell you what you are going to earn. So we always say that the first year scheme that we operate is a defined benefit scheme. What it simply means is that before you start working, you know, or once you start contributing, you know where you are heading towards. It's the SNIT scheme we run as a social insurance scheme. That's why it's Social Security and National Insurance Trust. People are insuring their incomes with us. So if you insure a certain income, then when you retire, you are expecting a certain replacement value. So you drive a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, and that is what you insure with us. I drive Matisse, and that is what I insured. At the end of the day, once both of us have done comprehensive insurance and there's a challenge, the expectation is that I should be giving something commensurate to the Matisse, and you will be expecting Mercedes S-Class. So if I come to SNET, I wouldn't expect SNET to give me an S-Class, but often that is how the conversation has gone out there. I have worked for so long, so I deserve so much. But it is just partial replacement of your income and not even the premium you paid.
Great. So you're saying garbage in, garbage out?
I will want to use the reverse, right? I will say what you put in will determine what you get.
Okay. Well, we need to also situate our conversation within what the stakeholder community, as well as very deep experience economists, as well as those who observe the economy, have been saying. You remember we had a big interaction with Kwame Pienim. He's a lead economist, has been a leading member of the governing MPP all this while. So he had something to say related to the decision being taken currently on individual bonds by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. After we take a watch, we'll come back to the studio, speak to the Member of Parliament for Impriso constituency, OPK as we all know him, but formally, Davis Ansan Opoku. He's right here.
To support it. The IMF negotiation is not going well.
You know this for a fact?
I know this for a fact. It's not going. What the IMF is waiting for is a bold, credible pronouncement from the president, as he did over the COVID. The president said, I take full responsibility, I'm in charge, and I'm going to make sure that Ghanaians are protected from the COVID. We need a president to own the crisis, to come out and say, there is nothing that I will not do to stabilize the economy of Ghana, to stop this pressure, the economic crisis that is looming, and that there are no sacred cows. All the flagship programs will be looked at and reviewed for efficiency. School, the free school one, the feeding, we are going to look at all that. And I myself, I'm going to set the example. It's expenditures that need to be cut. No spooking traders by planting GRA officers in their shops. If somebody were to say they are going to plant somebody in your living room, would you like that?
Is that a wrong policy? Is that a wrong policy?
It's wrong. Look, people are suffering. When people are suffering, that's not when you irritate them by starting things new. It's not going well, the negotiations. If the president, I know that, I mean, that's my business, to keep my ears open. I'm a Ghanaian, I'm interested in the economy, moving in the right direction. We are friends in Washington. So what I'm saying is that it's not going well, but they are looking for the president to come up as he came out on COVID. A credible message. I'm going to make sure we cut expenditures to stabilize the economy.
Have you had the opportunity to tell him this?
Yes, I mean, I send messages, I talk to him, you see, and then you need a credible messenger. Ken Ofori-Atta is not a credible messenger. Somebody who didn't want to take in this route, how can we say he should lead it? First, I say that the hardships on Ghanaians is unprecedented.
Right.
So we should save Ghanaians additional misery by stepping down. The second part is that NPP has a reasonably good reputation as a good manager of the Ghanaian economy.
That is Kwame Pienim. And that sent shivers down the spine of many. DG Tamakule is here. We also have seated Davis Ansan Opoku, Member of Parliament for Impriso, and I have to say good morning. Thank you for joining us as well. But let me go on to the phone lines and speak to Ebenezer Martin Owusu Ansan. We just have one question for him. He's a member, Public Servant Pensioners Association. And Mr. Owusu Ansan.
Yes.
Mr. Owusu. Yeah, Mr. Owusu Ansan. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Okay, great. What's the position of the unions now, knowing that, well, government has backtracked on that decision to involve you, but you look at the way the individual bondholders are responding, it could also mean that that conversation with you will have to be resuscitated, or if not, be brought back to the table.
Yeah, let me say good morning to your viewers, good morning to the panel and you as well. Our position is that the 25% increment is woefully inadequate. You must realize that we live within a community, and we are competing for one thing. So our expenditure power has been eroded, and we cannot survive on that 25%. Way back last year, before June, we wrote to our leader, Mr. Kemevo, wrote to the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, asking for an increment. We haven't heard from them yet. And we checked the PRO for the state, saying that what you sign for is what you get. But we didn't sign for this. We didn't sign for a debt-ridden country and, inflation as high as this. We did not. So please, I think that it is very important that our issue is addressed, because some people receive as low as 600 Ghana cedis. What are they going to do? They can't do anything with that money. The cost of health is gone up, food is gone up, transportation, everything has gone up. And we receive difference. It is not fair. So the government has to do something about it.
But
yeah,
we know that behind the bulk pension contributors from you as labor unions are individuals who make up these institutions or unions. And you find that these individuals are the same people who are individual bondholders. How do you synchronize this sort of conversation then?
How do I synchronize?
Yes, because the individuals still make up the union. So you, the union, say no, but at the end of the day, we have individuals who are having bonds on their own, and now the conversation is back to them. So you because you form the bulk numbers, will have to you have to save the day, don't you think so?
I don't think so, because if we are not receiving even enough in terms of pension money, and we have in some way also have bonds and all those kind of things, and you can't even for it's going to be cut, or when you want it, you have to write a letter and show why you want to use that money, blah, 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 blah. Then we are affected. I mean, so even your extra income cash where you depend on for a living is not available to you. So what do? I mean, it's not fair. It is not fair to any pensioner. And we insist that the 25% increment is woefully inadequate, and that something should be done about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And that's Mr. Uso and Sam. Well, if we need him again within the conversation, we'll call him. And so, Bukwanza, how are you?
I'm doing well.
You take a resounding look at what the observations are, especially the response of these individual bondholders, those leading the charge to have these class actions undertaken.
Yeah.
Is it that they are not empathizing with government, or it is a position that's real from where you look at it from being a member of parliament?
Thank you very much, Roland, and I want to say a very good morning to my constituents who I know this morning will be doing the watching, and also to my friend, Fat. We know start today, DJ and I, and of course to Senior. So are we discussing the SNIT increment of 25%, or we are doing the domestic debt exchange, individual debt exchange program?
We'll look at the domestic debt exchange, and then
we'll
look at the SNIT.
I think that first, if you're a Ghanaian, we need to face the realities. I mean, like the usual saying, we are not in normal times. And it's important that we appreciate that where we have gotten to, everybody, if you're a Ghanaian, should be prepared to make sacrifices so that we get out of the woods. I mean, to sit here and claim that our books are looking good will be very bad on my part, and also to our viewers. Things are not right. But how do we get out of it? As a country, we decided that we were going to go to the IMF to seek for some support. The IMF came into to Ghana. They reviewed our books and suggested several policies that they think that if government rolls out, we'll be able to at least get our debts sustainable. Just when Parliament, in the last session, where we all saw that we introduced a couple of bills, which included some 2.5% increment in VAT, all aimed at attaining that sustainability that we all seek for as a people. One proposal that have come up from the Ministry of Finance has to do with calling on persons to exchange their debt. And if you are to look at the commentaries that have come out, clearly Ghanaians are not happy, and rightly so. I mean, you do not expect people to be happy when they have invested over a certain period of time and would want to enjoy their dividends. Many of these persons are pensioners. I mean, people who worked over 30, 40 years and decided to save their monies by buying bonds. So clearly, no Ghanaian will be happy about the situation. What I know is that we have a very responsive government, a government that listens to its people. Of course, initially when this whole debt exchange program came up, there was a suggestion, or the proposal from government was that even our pensions were going to be affected. And government listening to bodies like the TUC and all of that, and arrived at the situation. Let's not touch there. So clearly, looking at the comments coming from Ghanaians, I know that our government, a very responsive government, will act. And I can tell you that today, hopefully, the Ministry of Finance will be issuing a statement.
Again?
Today, they will be issuing a statement on this subject. Of course, not again. It's an issue of national security, it's an issue of great concern. And every government who appreciates that people matter should be very responsive in these situations. And that, for me, should be what every Ghanaian should be excited about. But that said, we all must be prepared, like I said, to make sacrifices. If we do not get this IMF program, we all know the consequences that befalls us as a people. And for me, we should be prepared. And I think the time is now. Probably the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, government agencies must engage properly.
Shouldn't the engagement be undertaken before you come to do the announcement? That's the real problem, is that not it?
Well, you know, if you are talking about individual bond holders, I mean, you are not looking at 100 or 10 agencies or whatever. I mean, these are persons scattered across the country. People decide on their own evolution to
You are saying engagement couldn't have been possible?
Well, I'm saying that probably maybe the engagement wasn't sufficient, but you cannot say that there wasn't engagement at all. Probably they had engaged some persons, but it wasn't that wide. And I know there's a continuous exercise. We are hoping that at least today the statement from government would ease some tension in the system. It's important that we get this program, but whilst doing that, we are also humans. We must listen to the plight of our people and the concerns raised by them and address it. That, for me, is the essence of forming government being in charge of the management of the country. And I know that President Akufo-Addo and his government will listen to Ghanaians today.
Okay. Edwige, you juxtapose what it's coming from him, and then also the key concerns about pre-stakeholder engagement before a policy announcement. And we know that this policy was announced on the eve of Christmas, not exactly 24th, but on 19th. And then we have a key individual like Gabi Asare-Otredako make big statements saying that it is now or never. At what level do we say there's a level of empathy, but also at the same time an announcement that we expect to come from the finance minister to say this is how it's going to be? How do we make those juxtapositions?
Okay, so Roland, the truth of the matter is that the people who are managing our economy now are not truthful. The level of dishonesty from them makes it difficult for citizens to agree on a question of burden sharing. Look, if Gabi Asare-Otredako had given an indication to the people of this country that my brother, Ken Ofori-Atta, the amount of money he had made by way of commission from the bonds that were issued.
Are you discussing that?
Hold on, please. He raised that issue.
I think no. I mean,
Davis, you and I, you see, like he said, you and I, we've gone.
What has Gabi got to do with the discussion this morning? Is he a government official?
We've come far. So just calm down. Calm down. When you were talking, I was writing. Can I give you a paper?
I just stick to the issues. I mean,
let me give you a paper.
Gabi is not a part of government. Gabi is not a part of this morning's discussion.
So can I proceed?
Yes, please do that.
So like the point I was making, if ultimately the monies the Akufo-Addo family have made from the unbridled borrowing that we have seen in the 6 years of his tenure, then Ghanaians can have a decent conversation with the current managers of the economy.
What do you want to be done?
Look, when Akufo-Addo became president, we saw a certain pattern. Which pattern was that? Almost every year, Ken Ofori-Atta will go for no less than $2 billion of Eurobond. Consistently, we said, look, this is not sustainable. You cannot manage an economy by borrowing to manage that economy. It cannot be sustained. So control the borrowing. Ken won't listen. At that time, Gabi, who is today asking her that we've gotten a situation of make or break, was urging him on.
But he's not in government.
Hold on. Because
he's just making commentary like anybody.
Because at every point in time, anytime he went for the Eurobond, his company data bank was directly benefiting from it. And so he had more edge to borrow more.
But he's not in management.
To the point that today, as we speak, right? Within the space of 6 years, Eurobond alone that Ken Ofori-Atta went for is $11 billion. That is minus the $2.25 billion Franklin Templeton bond. So if you put it together, 13 billion of Eurobond in the space of 6 years. Now you see, this is what has happened. You have a government that went to the Eurobond market and told investors that, listen, we have revenue stream. One is called ESLA. And so I am issuing a bond called ESLA PLC bonds, right? And so the receivables from ESLA, I'll use it to service that bond. Investors look at it and say, yes, we are confident, so we'll give you our money.
Okay, Edwige.
And they gave the money.
Now we're at a point where decisions have been made. Individuals are raising issues. So the conversation is around what the responses are from these individuals' board holders.
No, so,
and then where do we move the conversation?
No. So I am demonstrating to you that if, for instance...
Because this refrain, I've heard it before.
No. If for instance, you go to bond holders and they gave you their money with the basis that there is an income stream called ESLA, or they gave you Dutching bonds with a view that there is get fund money, 65% receivables will be used to service it. As we speak, you are still taking almost 2 cedis on every liter of petrol that is purchased. My position is that you still have the Get Fund money coming to you. You still have extra money coming to you. You have not stopped receiving those monies from taxpayers. So on what basis are you including the bondholders of these particular bonds in the bond program? When you do that, people will have legitimate reason to question you. That, this is how, unless of course we are running a NAM1 kind of government, where you deceive people that I'll give you this kind of money at the end of so and so period. And you are receiving the money.
Because we've gone to the IMF.
No.
And the IMF says that bring me a program of action that will give me a certain foresight that in the next 6 months or a year, and subsequently medium to long term, you'll be debt sustainable.
You see, Roland.
So the finance minister is calling on all of us to burden share.
But that is why I'm saying that call is a dishonest call.
So what should we do?
Please, you see, when you go to sit on negotiating table, there's something we call good faith. When you go and sit at the negotiation table, right, and you have your hands tied at your back, nobody will listen to you. Do you know why? Because nobody knows what is behind you. So at the negotiation table, what you do is that you put all hands on table. The people can see a certain level of honesty. The people can see a certain level of transparency, even in your dealing. Now, you are not dealing with them on the basis of a transparent engagement. It becomes difficult. Do you know why? See, the question of debt exchange program is not happening first time. After Second World War, even in Great Britain, people saw that monies were used in the war efforts, right, to defeat a particular evil. When people saw that reality, and government came back to them and said, look, we are in debt by reason of the war. So help us resolve the challenge. On the basis of patriotism, the people of Great Britain agreed and even forfeited their monies because they knew what government had used the monies for. In this case, we have a situation where we've gotten to where we are because of recklessness on the part of government. Do you know the dishonesty in this particular debt exchange program? Do you know one?
What is it?
One of them is that, listen, government claimed that I'm doing a debt exchange program because I do not have money to pay my debt, right? Now, the same government is keeping certain revenue streams running when it can use that money to service the debt because the NPP is looking at 2024. They need the fiscal space, money, to prosecute the 2024 campaign.
How did you come by that conclusion?
I'll tell you this. In 2020, COVID last minute provided them fiscal buffer for them to roll out the freebies. And looking at 2024, they want the same fiscal buffer to roll out their freebies. And so what they want to do by way of this debt exchange program is that their responsibility to their creditors do not, and keep the money for the purposes of 2024.
That's a conspiracy.
And Ghanaians, look, Ghanaians must reject this obnoxious, wicked debt exchange program at all costs. And the reason is simple. Akufo-Addo in all of this has not demonstrated the humility that you require in crisis. What you do in crisis is that as a leader, you take responsibility first for the creation of the crisis and tell your people that, look, I am sorry for the state in which I have brought this economy. Together, let us rebuild it. That is what leaders do. You do not, in the midst of crisis, force on people what I will call complete stealing of people's funds. It had never happened since 1957.
What do you mean complete stealing? We're burden sharing.
No,
that's what they say.
You see, in every economy, please, I'll just conclude. 30 seconds. In every economy, in every economy, two things. When government wants to take money from citizens, it does it through taxation. Taxes are legitimate ways government takes money from citizens. This debt exchange program is the biggest movement of private wealth to government ever seen. Over 100 billion. Why have you seen this thing before?
Now,
possibly you are not affected.
Now, Mr. Opoku, there's you answer him.
Yes.
If you listen to Mr. Kwame Pienim,
Yeah.
he's a leading member of the MPP,
Yes.
and he's a respected member,
Yeah.
and he's also a respected economist. So he's worked with some of these Bretton Woods institutions over there, and he says that the finance minister has not exhibited candor or sincerity.
Completely.
And he also says that the program or the strategies to get out of this are not right. And then, if you look at your own side of the political divide, he seemed to have lost trust. The president bought time with you. You also bought into his persuasions. So clearly, if you look at the stakeholder sentiment, they just don't seem to be right and get a buy-in for the strategy. Is that not where the problem lies?
Roland, thank you very much. Of course, I mean, you should expect Eduji to sing from the first stanza of NDC's hymnal book. I mean, it's clear. I mean, blame Gabi, blame Akufo-Addo, blame Ken Ofori-Atta, blame virtually everything that has to do with the MPP callous for where we have gotten to. I mean, this is not the first time as a people, I mean, we find ourselves going to the IMF. The NDC led us to the IMF. In 2015, I mean, that led to, they moved the entire stakeholders in this country to Senchi, just to brainstorm on a single decision by government to go to the IMF. I'm told that this is more like the sixth time that we've been to the IMF as a country. Seventh.
No, this is our 17th time.
17th time we've gone to the IMF. So going to the IMF, for me, it is not something that one would want to blame government or create the impression that I mean, all is lost. We are contributors of the IMF. So if we are going to the IMF to seek for a program, you don't sit on radio to want to create the impression that all is lost or there's a Magdon or there's a big challenge in this country. I mean, you don't do that. Two, he admitted that this is not the first time a country is going through this individual exchange program. In fact, in the revered Kwame Pienim's video that you played, he made mention of the Great Britain situation. And it demands that when a country is in difficulty, we all come together to contribute in ensuring that we sustain our country, we sustain our economy.
Is it your realization that you think that people or even Eduji's side of the political divide are just opposing the thing on substance based on wrong strategy, or it is that they just think Ken Ofori-Atta and MPP government is not good enough?
Well, if you look at Eduji's...
because from the last election, you can't say everybody is against you.
If you look at Eduji's comments this morning, clearly, the NDC harbors a certain fear that they think that, government is piling some money somewhere to engage in some infrastructure programs aimed
not
at...
infrastructure, please.
Please
go ahead.
So clearly, you would see the fear of the NDC. But you see, your colleagues, my colleagues, NDC members sit in Parliament. We also the budget as presented by the Finance Minister and how we are able to make this budget sustainable. They never raised this concern that you are raising today. So I'm surprised that you would want to veer into those areas and create the impression that there's some dishonest approach by government. It is not the case. I think where we have gotten to, it demands sacrifices. Where we have gotten to, let's put aside the MPP and NDC kind of arguments. I mean, blaming Gabi, bringing in Gabi. Who is Gabi in this situation? This is a major cabinet decision for this country to go to IMF. And you are bringing in Gabi, who is not even a class prefect or is not even an assemblyman in MPP say.
That's the Prime Minister.
Why do you bring in Gabi?
He's the Prime Minister.
Clearly, from your side of the political...
Clearly, you realize that for him, it is about scoring cheap political points.
This is not cheap. People saving.
Scoring cheap political points and not really addressing the issues.
From your side of the political divide,
yes.
Are you okay with the strategy that has been adopted so
far?
I've
told you that.
A strategy for which the finance minister, since that announcement, seems to be backtracking at each step of the way.
Let me tell you, where we are now, it demands that we negotiate. demands that every policy decision that you take, you come back to the drawing table, sit with your people, and
do you think that is what the finance minister is doing?
Well, that is what it needs to be done. That's why I've told you that today the Ministry of Finance will be issuing a statement because they are responsive to the concerns as raised by Ghanaians. They are responsive to the concerns as being raised by Ghanaians. So if you have a Ethiopia kind of government who thinks that
and that's what this government
is. I'm a dead goat, like we experienced under the NDC, a dead goat situation.
Even you want
you have plunged Ghana into chaos. But of course, you have a government and its functionaries who say that, oh yes, I mean there are some pockets of concerns, and I think that they are genuine. So we've gone back to the drawing table and we've made suggestions. And for me, that is leadership. Listening to the people to revise.
Strategy is wrong, but you say the strategy is right.
Well, I'm saying that I'm not talking about strategy. I am talking about
because the strategy that is being rebuffed by the individuals.
Well, don't worry. That's what I'm saying. That it's like paying taxes. Nobody is happy to pay taxes. Yeah. You should not expect individual bond owners to be excited. Government says exchange your bonds and all of that. No, nobody is expecting that. Everybody is affected. In fact, I have had colleagues, members of the majority leader of Seche Mensa Bonsu, the chief whip, Anodon Pre. Everybody is talking about this bond situation. So everybody is concerned. And that is why we should be appreciative of government's way of responding to the concerns of Ghanaians. And that's what I'm saying, that let's all relax. Don't engage in the usual politics that you come and sit here and do, because this situation is of utmost security concern to every Ghanaian. So let's do away with the MPP, NDC, out that sat here, brought in Setekpe Serra, you took us to IMF, you did this, you were incompetent. That time, nobody could talk of a COVID and Russian-Ukraine war, but it is needless. All of that is needless. What matters is that...
What is needful?
What matters is that as political players, where we have gotten to, let's look at Ghana. Let's consider Ghana. Look at Ghana.
Do you think the strategy is right? You haven't answered the question.
Well, I'm saying that I'm not here. I'm not a finance person.
I'm not asking you based on
I'm coming. Mr. PNM will be talking about strategy. He would have a different approach as to how to go about it. I'm not in charge of the finances of this country. What I am concerned about is that my people will be happy. Government would have a sustainable way of managing our debt, and Ghana will move on. That, for me, matters to me. Jamaica has been in this same situation. They've exchanged individual bond, and the country did not ground to a halt. So please, exercise patience, Eduji. I mean, on a different day, we can come and sit on this studio and be doing the first stanza of the NDC chapter 1 hymnals and all of that. We can be doing that. But today, we are in critical situation.
Mr.
3 minutes.
Mr. Eduji, I think the consensus on the table here is that please be receptive. Go and tell the individuals, and then also your side of the political divide. Be receptive of the strategy has been employed by the finance minister.
Let me tell you why it is difficult to convince anybody to accept government strategy.
Why is that?
You see, foolhardiness has repercussion for an economy. Foolhardiness. Look, the IMF and the World Bank has a program they call the Debt Service Suspension Initiative.
The DSSI.
The DSSI. In the year 2020, getting to 2021, Ghana had the opportunity of signing on to the DSSI, which would have meant that the amount of money we had to use to service our debts will be doing savings. Ken Oforiatta, because of the Eurobonds he was going for, decided that he will not sign onto the DSSI. The reason being that he had projected in the 2021 budget, 2022 budget of doing e-levy. And so he felt that when you sign on to the DSSI, there will be a moratorium on your borrowing. But since he was making money out of the borrowing, there was no way he was going to agree to the DSSI.
That's your assumption.
No.
I think that at this point in time, we all agree that if you look at countries that sign to the DSSI, they were better off.
They are better off.
Yes.
And I'm saying that, you see.
And some of those conditionalities that you also bring to the table with the IMF in signing up the DSSI is that you don't go and do the commercial borrowings on the market.
So there is a reduction. We are doing this debt
how
exchange.
do you equate that to a parochial interest of the finance minister because maybe a company that he's a shareholder of?
Yeah, because you see,
going to take commissions from,
if you stop the borrowing,
an assumption.
No, it's not. If you stop the borrowing, what happens to the commission? It will stop. Simple situation. But you see, the most important thing for me is that the way government even started this debt exchange program, it was done
in terms
on
of the conversation.
Yes, it was done on the basis of falsehood. If you recall, when the minority ranking on finance, Ato Forsen, at the program JM did, indicated that there was going to be a haircut, the president did a rebuttal by assuring Ghanaians that there is not going to be any haircut. He made it very clear. Then, less than 2 weeks down the line, we started seeing releases that there was going to be a debt exchange program. So what they did was to swap the haircut for debt exchange program. But the net effect is that you are restructuring a debt. When you restructure a debt, 3 things happen. You change the tenor, you change the interest, or the principal. The president at all material time knew that one of these was going to happen, but decided to lie to the people of this country. Now, when you start a conversation premised on falsehood, it becomes difficult. Look, all these people who are talking, starting first from the pensioners, individual bondholders, association of bankers, is because of the initial assurances coming from government. If right from the beginning, 1, government has signed on to the IMF program a year earlier, we will not be here. 2, if we are signed on to the DSSI, we will not be here. 3, if government has been honest and transparent in its financial dealings, we will not be here. So we cannot have an honest conversation unless people who have been entrusted with the management of this economy are truthful to the people. And that you do not find with Akufo-Addo and his team. Like somebody said, maybe instead of a debt exchange program, we should possibly be looking at a loot exchange program.
Oh, no.
Or we should not. Okay, very well.
Don't make such comments.
Okay.
I like my brother so much. I like Eduche.
David,
I will leave it.
David,
there.
just a minute. I have to go for a break.
Yes.
Then we'll come back and discuss the 25% pensioners.
That is the good news that we should be discussing. Pensioners are happy. I mean,
right. So the finance minister is going to release what exactly in that statement?
I'm saying that let's wait for the statement. I mean,
we should wait for a statement. Yeah. All right.
Obviously, it's not good news.
All right.
Why is it?
Mr. Gashon is here with us. He's the PR manager for SNITS. The state pension manager has got the approval for 25% increment in SNITS. Is it pensions? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. So the whole of last week, we had the Director General go on some level of media stakeholder engagement and telling us how good that is a news. But we'll take a real look at that and comprehensively what we should be looking forward to. It's where we have to go for a break. When we come back, we have more on that. Stay with us.